Our planet holds entire worlds beneath the waves. For thousands of years, the oceans have kept a profound secret, hiding ruins that could rewrite the story of humanity. This journey explores 20 submerged sites, from mysterious pyramids to drowned cities, that suggest advanced civilizations may have flourished during the last ice age. By the end, you will see our ancient past not as a settled timeline, but as a vast, unfinished map with its most intriguing chapters still underwater. What if the Great Flood myths are not just stories, but memories of a real global catastrophe? How do we explain stone structures found at depths that should have been dry land over 10,000 years ago? What does it mean for our understanding of history if we have been missing a crucial, sunken piece of the puzzle? Are we ready to listen to what the deep sea is trying to tell us? Stories of a world engulfing flood echo across nearly every ancient culture on Earth. From the Epic of Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia to the legends of the Maya, from the sacred texts of many traditions to the oral histories of isolated island peoples, the narrative is strikingly similar. A great deluge sent by higher powers or rising from the sea itself wipes the slate of civilization nearly clean, sparing only a chosen few. For a long time, these were seen as purely symbolic tales, moral lessons about divine judgment. But modern geology presents us with a startling possibility. What if these stories are not myths at all, but fragmented, amplified memories of a real and catastrophic global event? The stage for this drama was set at the end of the last ice age, a period scientists call the Pleistocene epoch. For thousands of years, colossal ice sheets, miles thick, locked away an enormous volume of the planet's water. Then, beginning around 12,000 years ago, the world warmed. The great glaciers began their relentless retreat, melting and calving into the rising seas. This was not a gentle, gradual process. Research suggests it involved rapid pulses and dramatic events, where massive glacial lakes burst their icy dams, sending catastrophic floods sweeping across continents. The result was a global sea level rise of nearly 400 feet. To visualize that, picture the waterline creeping up past the 20th floor of a modern skyscraper. This immense geological transformation didn't just change coastlines, it erased entire landscapes. Vast, fertile coastal plains, river valleys, and archipelagos that had been home to humans and animals for millennia were swallowed by the ocean in what, geologically speaking, was the blink of an eye. These were not barren wastelands. These now drowned continental shelves like the legendary Sundal and connecting Southeast Asia or Doggerland in the North Sea were prime real estate for early human societies. They offered rich resources, mild climates, and easy travel along river networks. The rising waters did not merely flood empty beaches, they inundated the very heartlands where humanity might have been taking its first steps toward more complex community life. This shifts the great flood narratives from the realm of parable into the domain of potential history. The collective, global memory of such a traumatic loss, passed down for hundreds of generations, could easily become the core of a foundational myth. The question this geological reality forces us to ask is profound. If these lands were so hospitable and likely inhabited, what traces of those peoples were lost? What tools, artworks, or structures now lie silent under hundreds of feet of water and millennia of sediment? The search for answers begins not with legend, but with a tangible, enigmatic discovery off the coast of a country known for its ancient mysteries. The controversy begins with a single, startling shape on the ocean floor. South of Japan, near the remote island of Yonaguni, a diver exploring in the 1980s encountered something that defied simple explanation. Looming out of the deep blue was a colossal formation, a monolith of sandstone rising from the seabed some 80 feet below the surface. Its features were what captured the world's imagination. The structure appeared to have vast, flat terraces stacked upon one another, connected by what looked like steep, straight staircases. Sharp 90-degree angles met in precise corners. There were tall, pillar-like projections and wide, open platforms that seemed purposefully leveled. To many who saw it, this was not a random act of geology. It looked for all the world like the ruins of a grand ceremonial complex, a sunken pyramid or a sacred platform built by human hands in a time when this spot was dry land. That time, based on sea level models, could be over 10,000 years ago, placing its construction deep in the prehistoric past, near the end of the last ice age. The debate it ignited has raged ever since, perfectly illustrating the thrilling difficulty of underwater archaeology. On one side are those who see clear evidence of human work. They point to the seemingly symmetrical designs, the clusters of what appear to be tool marks on the rock faces, and the sheer improbability of such geometric perfection arising naturally. Could ocean currents alone carve what looks like a massive, multi-tiered staircase? Could random fracturing create such clean, straight walls and right-angled openings? For proponents, Yonaguni is a haunting monument, potentially proof of a sophisticated culture in the ancient Pacific, one with the knowledge and organization to shape stone on a monumental scale. Skeptics, however, offer a compelling natural explanation. They note that the sandstone in this region is prone to fracturing along straight lines and flat plains due to tectonic stresses. The powerful currents of the area could then erode and undercut these fractures over millennia, creating the terraces, pillars, and sharp edges we see. They argue that while the formation is breathtaking, its features fall within the known repertoire of natural marine erosion. The human brain, they suggest, is wired to see patterns and structures, a tendency called pareidolia, which might be projecting order onto a fascinating but entirely natural sculpture. This standoff is more than just an academic quarrel. It gets to the very heart of how we investigate our submerged past. Yonaguni forces us to ask, what is the threshold of proof for a sunken ruin? When does a strange shape become a sacred site? It teaches us that the deep sea is a master of illusion, but also a keeper of secrets. Whether ultimately proven to be a work of nature, humanity, or a stunning combination of both, the Yonaguni monument stands as a powerful symbol. It is a sentinel in the deep, reminding us that the boundary between natural wonder and human legacy is often blurred, waiting for the next discovery to bring it into focus. And while debate swirls around Yonaguni, another discovery far across the world presents evidence that is far harder to dismiss as mere geology. Off the coast of modern India, the boundary between scripture and seabed begins to blur. Here, the ancient Sanskrit epic, the Mahabharata, describes a city of almost unimaginable splendor. Dwarka, the golden fortress of the deity Krishna, was said to be built upon reclaimed land from the ocean, a celestial metropolis adorned with palaces and gardens, protected by massive walls and gates. The texts recount its tragic fate, that after Krishna's departure from the world, the glorious city was consumed by the rising sea, vanishing beneath the waves. For centuries, this was considered a powerful myth, a symbolic end to a divine era. Then, marine archaeologists began to look. What they found has turned poetic legend into a tangible archaeological puzzle. Scattered across the seabed near the modern coastal town of Dwarka, divers and researchers have uncovered a sunken landscape that echoes the ancient descriptions. They have mapped massive stone walls, some over 15 feet in length, and found clusters of stone anchors that would have moored large vessels. They have recovered pottery, inscriptions, and other artifacts that speak of a bustling port. Scientific dating of these materials places this submerged settlement firmly within the second millennium before the Common Era, around 3,500 years ago. This aligns with a known historical period of Indian civilization, but the legend insists on something far older, a city that predates recorded history. This creates a fascinating layer of interpretation. Archaeologists propose that the site shows clear evidence of having been occupied, abandoned, and rebuilt multiple times over the centuries. The structures found on the seafloor may represent the last Dwarka, a powerful port city that eventually succumbed to coastal erosion or a localized flood event, an event so catastrophic it became woven into the older, grander mythos. Yet the possibility remains that beneath these historical ruins, buried under millennia of silt, lie even earlier foundations. Could the original Dwarka, the one of legend, have been a settlement on that now drowned coastal plain from the end of the Ice Age? Did later peoples, discovering the remnants of a mysterious, ancient city at the water's edge, rebuild upon its sacred ground, their own city's eventual drowning merging with the older memory in epic poetry? Dwarka presents a different kind of evidence than the geological mystery of Yonaguni. Here, the human artifacts are undeniable. The connection to a rich cultural memory is direct. It shows us how a real place, subjected to the relentless power of the sea, can transform over generations into a symbol of lost glory. The discovery does not prove the literal truth of every detail in the Mahabharata, but it powerfully suggests that at the heart of the myth lies a historical kernel, a profound cultural memory of a great city that was lost to the ocean. It is a reminder that our oldest stories are often maps, pointing to real places where water now covers the past. And as we move from the legends of India to the clear, blue waters of the Mediterranean, another discovery awaits, one found not by chance, but through the deliberate search for a prehistoric shoreline. Beneath the cold, grey waves of the North Sea, a lost world sleeps. For millennia, fishermen trawling these waters have pulled up strange trophies in their nets, not just fish, but ancient stone tools, the bones of mammoths and lions, and even lumps of peat from long-drowned forests. These weren't random fragments, they were clues pointing to a vast, forgotten landscape now called Doggerland. During the last ice age, this was no seabed, but a sprawling, fertile plain, a verdant bridge that connected the British Isles to the European continent. It was a rich ecosystem of rolling hills, dense forests, meandering rivers, and marshlands, teeming with life and, crucially, with people. Modern sonar mapping has painted a breathtaking picture of this sunken homeland, revealing not just the ghostly outlines of river valleys and forests preserved in silt, but something even more compelling. Scattered across this drowned landscape are enigmatic mounds and linear features that do not match the natural contours. Archaeologists suggest these could be the remnants of human structures, perhaps hunting blinds, burial sites, or early ceremonial mounds, built by the Mesolithic hunter-gatherers who called this place home. The evidence of their presence is undeniable, from finely crafted flint tools to the bones of animals they hunted, all found together on the seafloor. Doggerland reshapes our very definition of a lost civilization. This was not a city of stone, but a civilization of landscape, a deep cultural and spiritual connection to a specific, abundant territory. These communities possessed sophisticated knowledge of their environment, complex social structures, and rich oral traditions, their entire world woven into the forests and rivers. Then the waters came. As the glaciers melted, sea levels rose relentlessly, slowly transforming this paradise into a patchwork of islands and lagoons before finally submerging it completely around 8,000 years ago. The final blow may have been a catastrophic event, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway that triggered a devastating tsunami, sweeping across the remaining low-lying lands. Doggerland is not a ruin in the conventional sense, it is a submerged homeland. It teaches us that advanced, culturally rich societies existed long before agriculture and urban centers, and that their greatest monuments were not pyramids, but their way of life, perfectly adapted to a world that now lies silent beneath the waves. The story of these people is not one of grand architecture, but of profound adaptation and ultimate displacement, a poignant reminder that the most fertile cradles of humanity often now rest on the ocean floor. And as we move from the drowned plains of the North Sea to the tropical waters of the Caribbean, we encounter a discovery that presents the opposite scenario, a structure of such precise and colossal geometry that it demands an explanation far beyond natural chance. The clear blue shallows of the Bahamas hide a puzzle that has divided experts for decades. Just off the coast of Bimini Island, resting in about 20 feet of water, lies one of the world's most famous underwater formations, the Bimini Road. Discovered in the 1960s, it is a half-mile-long pathway of rectangular limestone blocks, each one roughly the size of a small car, arranged in a strikingly straight line that curves into a distinct J shape. To the eye, it looks unmistakably man-made, a sunken causeway or the foundation of a massive seawall, now colonized by coral and silent fish. For many, this was the long-sought proof, a tangible piece of the legendary lost continent of Atlantis, a paved road from a time when this entire carbonate platform was a dry, inhabited land. The timing, based on sea level data, would again point to the end of the last ice age. Geologists, however, offer a different and well-documented explanation. They identify the material as beak rock, a type of sandstone that forms naturally along tropical shorelines when sand and shell fragments cement together over time. Tectonic stresses can cause this cemented layer to fracture along straight lines and right angles, much like a giant, natural tile floor cracking under pressure. Over millennia, as sea levels rose, this fractured slab simply settled onto the seafloor, creating the illusion of a constructed pavement. The curve of the J shape, they argue, could follow the contour of an ancient, long-vanished beachline. Yet, the sheer visual impact of the Bimini Road is undeniable. The blocks appear so neatly aligned, their edges so sharp, that the natural explanation can feel unsatisfying to those who stand on it. This is the enduring power of such sites. They live in the tension between what we see and what science can definitively prove. The Bimini Road may not be a road to Atlantis, but it has become a road to a deeper question. How do we interpret the ambiguous artifacts of the deep? When does a remarkable natural formation become a canvas for our deepest myths about lost worlds? It reminds us that the ocean floor is not just a geological archive, but a psychological one, reflecting our own desire to find order, purpose, and grand stories written in stone beneath the waves. And sometimes the most compelling evidence comes not from a single road, but from an entire cityscape mapped in meticulous detail. While the Bimini Road remains a beautiful mystery, the waters of Greece offer a discovery that leaves no room for doubt. Off the southern coast of the Peloponnese, lying just beneath the surface in a quiet bay, rests the sunken city of Pavlopetri. This is not a legend or a strange rock formation. Archaeologists recognize it as the oldest known submerged city in the world, a complete urban plan frozen in time for over 5,000 years. Here, the past is not hidden, it is laid out before you with breathtaking clarity. As you glide above it, the entire city reveals itself. You can follow the main street as it winds between the foundations of homes and workshops. You can see the outlines of individual rooms, central courtyards where families gathered, and even tombs integrated into the city's design. This was a meticulously planned community, a thriving port from the early Bronze Age, with a complex social and economic structure. Its sophistication is undeniable, a testament to the advanced urban planning that existed millennia ago on these vulnerable Mediterranean shores. The story of its submersion is a quieter, slower drama than a catastrophic flood. Pavlopetri likely succumbed to a combination of gradual tectonic sinking, which lowered the land, and the relentless creep of post-ice age sea level rise. Over centuries, the sea patiently reclaimed the city, inch by inch, until its streets were finally abandoned to the waves. This makes Pavlopetri incredibly valuable. It is not a speculative ruin from a mythical age, but a proven model. It shows us in exquisite detail exactly how a real, sophisticated ancient city can transition from a living community to an underwater archaeological site. It provides a tangible, observable blueprint for the very process we are investigating on a global scale. If a city like this, with its organized streets and buildings, could be swallowed by the sea just a few thousand years ago through gradual change, then what might have happened to settlements built on those same coastlines 10,000 years earlier, when sea levels were rising far more rapidly? Pavlopetri acts as a powerful bridge in our understanding. It connects the known, historical ancient world with the deeper, prehistoric possibilities. It proves that the Oceans Museum holds not just artifacts, but entire blueprints of lost urban life, offering a clear picture of how the sea can preserve as well as destroy. This concrete example from Greece gives us the lens through which we can re-examine fainter, older shapes in deeper waters, wondering if they too are the ghostly outlines of a city's plan, waiting for their story to be read. The murky waters of India's Gulf of Khambhat hold what may be the most contentious discovery in all of underwater archaeology. Here, in a region of notoriously poor visibility, a sonar survey conducted in the early 2000s revealed something astounding on the seabed. The scans depicted not random shapes but sprawling, geometric patterns. Researchers identified what appeared to be the outlines of large structures, the grid of streets, and even the linear traces of canals, all lying at depths of up to 120 feet. The scale was that of a vast, sunken city complex. To add incredible weight to the sonar images, dredging operations brought up physical evidence from the site, including pieces of worked wood and stone artifacts. When samples of this wood were subjected to radiocarbon dating, the results sent shockwaves through the historical community. The dates suggested the material was up to 9,500 years old. If accurate, this would mean a sophisticated urban settlement existed in northwestern India millennia before the great Indus Valley cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, placing it directly in the era when Ice Age glaciers were in full retreat and sea levels were rising. The implications are staggering, suggesting a lost chapter of civilization flourishing at the very dawn of the current geological epoch. Yet, this potential revelation is shrouded in intense scientific debate. Critics point to the challenging conditions. The waters of the Gulf are thick with silt, making visual confirmation nearly impossible and raising questions about whether the sonar images are interpreting natural geological formations. The method of discovery, using dredging rather than careful excavation, means the recovered artifacts cannot be definitively tied to the structures on the seafloor. They could have come from anywhere. This debate is not just academic, it is a vital lesson in how we uncover the deep past. The Gulf of Khambhat site represents the extreme frontier of this search, where tantalizing evidence meets the rigorous, often frustrating standards of proof. It forces us to hold two conflicting ideas in mind at once. We have the breathtaking possibility of a city from a time we barely comprehend, and the sobering reality that the evidence for it remains just out of reach, obscured by water and controversy. Whether this site ultimately proves to be a geological marvel or a historical revolution, its legacy is already secured. It stands as a powerful symbol of the greatest challenge in underwater exploration, the siren call of a world-altering discovery, heard through the static of uncertainty, urging us to look deeper. 2,000 feet beneath the turquoise waves of the Caribbean, a shadow stirs. In 2001, a scientific team mapping the seafloor off the western coast of Cuba made a discovery that defied all expectation. Their sonar images revealed not the expected rolling silt plains, but colossal, angular shapes. They detected what appeared to be massive stone structures, some resembling step pyramids, others looking like smooth, geometric blocks, all resting at a depth that is almost incomprehensible for any human construction. We are not talking about a shallow reef or a sunken ship. This site lies under a crushing 2,000 feet of ocean. To understand the scale, that is deeper than most of the world's tallest skyscrapers are high. The implications of this depth are what transform a curious sonar anomaly into a paradigm-shattering enigma. For these structures to now be submerged under that much water, they would have had to be built on dry land when sea levels were dramatically lower. The only time in recent geological history when that much continental shelf was exposed was during the peak of the last ice age. This simple, staggering fact suggests an age that pushes the boundaries of conventional history. If these sonar shapes are indeed artificial, they could represent the work of a human society over 10,000 years ago, a society with the capability to move and shape stone on a monumental scale in the Caribbean basin, a chapter of human prehistory currently absent from all our textbooks. Yet, the story of the Cuban underwater pyramids is defined more by mystery than by proof. In the decades since that initial survey, no dedicated follow-up expedition with deep-sea submersibles has been mounted to visually confirm and study the site. The immense cost and technical difficulty of operating at such depths have kept it in the realm of tantalizing speculation. The sonar images remain, a ghostly blueprint on a computer screen, subject to interpretation. Skeptics rightly point out that nature can produce incredibly regular formations, from hardened sand dunes to unusual bedrock outcrops, that can fool even sophisticated sensors. Without physical samples or clear photographs, the scientific community remains cautiously silent. But the profound questions will not fade. What natural process creates perfect right angles and pyramidal forms at such a depth? The very scale and location of the anomaly make it one of the most haunting propositions in the search for lost civilizations. It is a reminder of how little of our own planet we have truly seen. We map the surfaces of Mars with rovers, but here on Earth, in our own oceans, there are abyssal plains holding secrets we have only glimpsed from afar. The Cuban pyramids, real or not, symbolize the ultimate frontier of this search, a deep-sea siren call hinting that our past may be buried not just in time, but under a mile of eternal night. Sometimes the most profound discoveries are not the largest, but the most perfectly preserved. Off the coast of Israel, near the town of Atlit, lies a village frozen in a moment of profound change. Known as Atlit Yam, this settlement rests under just 30 feet of Mediterranean water, a time capsule from over 9,000 years ago. This is not a legend or a sonar ghost, but a fully excavated archaeological site, a window into the daily life of a pre-pottery Neolithic community. What makes Atlit Yam so extraordinary is not just its age, but its completeness, and the clear story it tells of a people building a complex society just as the sea began to reclaim their world. Here, archaeologists have mapped the foundations of stone houses, arranged in a deliberate plan. They've uncovered deep, stone-lined wells that tapped into freshwater springs, a marvel of early engineering that shows an understanding of water management and a desire to settle in one place. But the centerpiece, both literally and spiritually, is a haunting stone circle. 7 massive megaliths stand in a silent ring, and at its center lies a tomb. This arrangement speaks volumes. It tells us these people were not merely surviving, they were constructing meaning. They were investing immense communal effort into creating a sacred space, a place for ceremony and memory, anchoring their community to both the land and the cosmos. Atlit Yam presents a powerful, tangible model. It is a confirmed, sophisticated village with clear evidence of social organization, technological skill, and ritual life, all established firmly on dry land. Then the waters rose, the Mediterranean, inching upward after the Ice Age, eventually flooded this thriving community, sealing it under layers of protective sand and silt. This site provides undeniable proof of a key concept, that rising seas did not just swallow empty coastlines, they inundated established, advanced human settlements. The people of Atlit Yam were not mythical Atlanteans, they were real farmers, builders, and families who had mastered their environment, only to see that environment transformed by forces far beyond their control. Their story is a poignant and specific example of the global process we've been exploring. It moves the narrative from speculation into documented history, showing us exactly what was lost when the shorelines of the world changed forever. High in the thin air of the Andes, a different kind of water holds its secrets. Lake Titicaca, straddling the border of Bolivia and Peru, is the world's highest navigable lake, a vast inland sea resting over 12,000 feet above the ocean. Its deep, cold waters, reflecting an impossibly blue sky, have long been central to the spiritual beliefs of the region, and beneath that serene surface, divers have found evidence that the lake's sacred history may be literally submerged. Explorations have revealed astonishing structures, including what appears to be a temple, ancient agricultural terraces, and a long, meandering stone wall, all resting silently on the lakebed. These ruins are generally linked to the Tiwanaku culture, a powerful pre-Incan civilization that flourished over 1,000 years ago. The conventional understanding is that the lake's water level has risen and fallen over the centuries, and these sites were built on its shores during a drier period before being gradually reclaimed. Yet the scale and nature of the finds invite deeper questions. Could some of these structures be far older, remnants from a time when the lake was significantly smaller, perhaps during the climatic upheavals at the end of the last ice age? Local legends speak of a lost city beneath the waves, a place called Wanaku, and these tangible ruins give such myths a powerful anchor in reality. This site shifts our perspective in a crucial way. It reminds us that the great inundation we seek evidence of is not solely an oceanic story. Dramatic climate change can transform inland landscapes just as profoundly. A lake is not a static feature. It is a living, breathing body of water that expands and contracts with the planet's moods. A civilization that thrived in the high Andes would have been uniquely attuned to these environmental shifts, building their societies in harmony with a fragile, high-altitude world. The submerged walls and temples of Lake Titicaca are a testament to that adaptation, and to the fact that when that world changed, whether through gradual rise or a sudden climatic event, it could leave its most sacred sites resting in silent, watery tombs. This discovery expands the map of our search from the continental shelves to the mountaintops, proving that the evidence for lost chapters of human history can be found in the most unexpected of waters. The Pacific holds a city built not on land but on defiance. On the remote island of Pohnpei, the ruins of Nan Madol rise from a shallow lagoon, a silent metropolis of stone constructed atop a coral reef. Nearly 100 artificial islets are linked by a network of tidal canals, earning it the name the Venice of the Pacific. But its true mystery lies in its origin story and its impossible construction. The massive walls are built from colossal basalt logs, each one weighing many tons, quarried from the opposite side of the island. How did an ancient people transport these gigantic stones across miles of water and jungle without metal tools or pulleys? Local oral tradition provides a haunting clue. The legends say the founders of Nan Madol, the Sordelor dynasty, arrived from a distant, sunken land to the east. This is not a unique story in the Pacific, where many island cultures speak of ancestral homelands lost beneath the waves. Nan Madol, therefore, is more than an archaeological wonder. It stands as a powerful architectural echo of that memory. The city itself is a masterpiece of hydrological engineering, a complex built in harmony with the tides, demonstrating a profound, hard-won knowledge of managing the boundary between sea and stone. This suggests its builders were not newcomers to the ocean, but heirs to a deep maritime tradition. Could that tradition have been forged in earlier, now submerged archipelagos? The logistical feat of building Madol implies a society with sophisticated social organization and nautical skill, possibly developed over generations on coastlines that no longer exist. The city becomes a monument not just to the people who built it, but to the landscapes they may have lost. It is a stone poem written on the water, suggesting that some of humanity's greatest works were born from the memory of drowned worlds, an effort to create a new, permanent home where the sea could not reach. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was a tragedy of immense scale, reshaping coastlines and lives in an instant. Yet, in its terrible wake, the retreating waters also performed a strange act of revelation. Along the coast of Mahabalipuram in southern India, the churning force of the waves pulled away centuries of accumulated sand, exposing something astonishing. For generations, local fishermen had spoken of 7 glorious pagodas, 6 of which were said to have been claimed by the sea in a great flood long ago. Only the famous shore temple remained on land, a solitary survivor of a grander complex. The tsunami, in its devastating passage, offered the first physical glimpse that this legend might be more than a story. What the receding waters uncovered were not vague shapes, but distinct and massive man-made structures. Underwater surveys revealed a sprawling network of stone walls, large rectangular blocks, and the remains of what appeared to be a protective seawall, extending nearly a mile out from the modern shore. These were not random geological formations. They were the unmistakable architecture of a lost port city, now resting in shallow water. Archaeological study links these ruins to the Pallava dynasty, a powerful kingdom that flourished around 1,500 years ago. This was a sophisticated maritime center, a hub of trade and culture that once buzzed with activity where now only fish swim. The discovery provides a powerful, tangible anchor for the local flood myth, suggesting a real cataclysmic event, perhaps a cyclone or an earlier tsunami, that submerged a significant portion of this ancient city. The surviving shore temple then became a monument to what was lost, its legend passed down through countless generations. Mahabalipuram teaches us a crucial, humbling lesson about the timeline of loss. This is not a ruin from a mythical ice age, but from a documented historical period. It shows us that the ocean's claim on human construction is not a one-time ancient event, but a continuous process. A city that thrived 15 centuries ago, in what we consider the relatively recent past, can still be utterly transformed by the sea. It reinforces the dynamic, often fragile relationship we have with the coast, a border that is never truly fixed. Here, legend and archaeology converge not in deep prehistory, but in the shadow of our own historical memory, reminding us that the waves have stories to tell from every era. The Baltic Sea holds a shape that seems to defy the very logic of geology. On the murky seafloor between Sweden and Finland, sonar scans revealed an object so geometrically strange it ignited a global firestorm of speculation. Dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, this formation is roughly 60 meters across with sharp edges, straight lines, and a distinct disc-like shape that many observers immediately compared to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Its surface appears textured with what look like staircases and passageways, and it rests atop a long, linear track, as if it skidded to a halt on the seabed. In a world fascinated by ancient mysteries, the immediate, thrilling question was obvious. Could this be the ultimate evidence of a lost, non-human technology, a crashed craft from another world, or a forgotten piece of an advanced terrestrial civilization? The context only deepens the intrigue. During the last ice age, this entire region was dry land, part of a vast, icy plain. If this object is artificial, it would have been constructed or arrived in a place that is now under hundreds of feet of water. The anomaly became a perfect vessel for our deepest curiosities, a Rorschach test in stone and silt where people saw proof of everything from alien visitors to a sunken Atlantean power plant. Yet, science offers a more grounded, though still fascinating, explanation. Most geologists who have examined the data attribute the formation to a completely natural process. They point out that the Baltic Sea basin is a complex geological patchwork shaped by glacial scraping, volcanic activity, and the immense weight of retreating ice sheets. The anomaly, they suggest, is likely a rare but explainable glacial deposit, a large mound of moraine left by a glacier, which subsequent underwater currents have eroded into its unusual, angular forms. The straight track behind it could be a glacial flute carved by ice dragging across the bedrock. What we perceive as stairs and corridors could be the result of differential erosion, where harder layers of rock resist the waters while softer material washes away. This natural explanation is compelling, but it hasn't fully quieted the mystery. The human mind is wired to see design, especially design that echoes the technology of our own culture. The Baltic Sea anomaly challenges us in a fundamental way. It forces a critical distinction in our search for lost history, the line between the truly anomalous and the naturally bizarre. The seabed is not a blank slate. It is a gallery of surreal sculptures crafted by immense natural forces over millions of years. Our task is to learn the difference between a masterpiece of nature and a monument of a lost culture. This object, whether a geological oddity or something else, serves as a crucial reminder. The greatest skill in underwater exploration may not be finding strange shapes, but cultivating the patience and discernment to interpret them, to listen to the story of the stones without letting our own hopes write the final chapter. Stone circles are meant for the sky, not the sea. On the coast of Brittany, in the Gulf of Morbihan, the tides perform a daily act of revelation and concealment. Here, the Neolithic site of Lannic presents a haunting, half-drowned spectacle. At low tide, a semicircle of ancient menhirs, massive standing stones, emerges from the shallow water like the vertebrae of a great stone beast. As the water returns, it slowly swallows them once more, leaving only the tips of the tallest stones to break the surface, a ghostly marker of what lies beneath. This is not a ruin lost to deep time, but a monument caught in a perpetual, rhythmic dance with the ocean. Archaeologists date this stone alignment to around 5,000 years before the Common Era, a time when this entire bay was almost certainly dry, fertile land. The builders of Lannic constructed their ceremonial circle with intention, aligning it with celestial events and the rhythms of their world, a world where the sea was a distant boundary, not a daily visitor. The fact that half the circle is now permanently submerged, with its companion arc still visible on the neighboring island, provides something invaluable, a clear and measurable benchmark. It is a fixed point in time that allows us to calculate, with startling precision, how much the sea has risen since the stones were first raised. This single site offers a quiet, undeniable truth. The ocean is not static. It has claimed this sacred ground foot by foot over millennia. While Lannic is not a lost city, its power lies in its simplicity and its proof. It provides a verified, dated precedent for the process we have been exploring on a colossal scale. If the sea could rise enough to drown a stone circle built on solid ground 5,000 years ago, what does that imply for the coastlines of 10,000 years ago when the waters were rising far faster? This submerged semicircle is a direct, tangible link between the known archaeological record and the grander, more mysterious hypothesis. It shows us that the encroachment of the sea is not a theoretical idea from geology textbooks. but a lived reality etched in stone and saltwater, a slow-motion flood still unfolding before our eyes. Midway between the continents, the Atlantic Ocean holds its deepest secrets. Off the coast of the Azores archipelago, a remote cluster of volcanic islands rising from the mid-Atlantic ridge, reports have surfaced of structures that challenge the very emptiness of this vast blue desert. Divers and sonar operators have described encountering colossal, stepped formations on the seafloor, their silhouettes resembling pyramids and vast, flat platforms, resting at depths that speak of immense antiquity. The immediate, logical explanation points to the powerful geology of the region itself. The Azores are a product of volcanic fury, born from the tectonic forces along the mid-Atlantic ridge where the Earth's crust is pulling apart. Here, nature is a master architect of the bizarre, capable of creating towering seamounts, sheer cliffs, and blocky lava formations that can fracture into stunningly regular, stair-like terraces. What a diver might interpret as a carved step could very well be a natural basalt column, a geometric accident of cooling magma and seismic stress. Yet, the persistence of these accounts, often describing clusters of these geometric forms in close proximity, keeps a more tantalizing possibility alive. The Azores have long been entangled with the world's most enduring lost continent myth, often cited as a potential remnant of Atlantis. This cultural association naturally colors how we interpret any anomaly found in these waters. But beyond the legend lies a compelling geological fact. The seafloor around the Azores is part of a large, relatively shallow underwater plateau. During the peak of the last ice age, when global sea levels were at their lowest, significant portions of this plateau would have been dry land, potentially forming a much larger island chain or even a continuous, sizable territory. If any of these reported structures were indeed shaped by human hands, they could only have been built when this land was exposed to the air. This simple fact transforms the speculation. It suggests the possibility, however remote, of a maritime culture with the skill to navigate the open Atlantic and establish a presence on these now submerged highlands, a culture existing at a time when much of humanity was still bound to coastlines and river valleys. The profound implication is not necessarily of a single lost continent, but of interconnected islands and archipelagos that served as stepping stones, now drowned, that could have facilitated movements and cultural exchanges in deep antiquity that our current historical models do not account for. Whether natural or artificial, these deep sea shapes near the Azores represent the ultimate frontier mystery. They exist in the shadowy zone where geology, myth, and the tantalizing possibility of a forgotten human chapter all converge, reminding us that some of the ocean's greatest secrets are kept not in shallow waters, but in the abyssal plains between the worlds we know. The Aegean Sea cradles another quiet, profound truth. On the small island of Kyra Panagia in the northern Sporades, the waters hold the sunken village of Agios Petros, a settlement whose story is told not through legend, but through the meticulous language of archaeology. Dating to around 6,000 years before the Common Era, this Neolithic community offers a clear, human-scale window into a world being reshaped by the sea. Unlike the grand mysteries of deep-water anomalies, Agios Petros has been carefully excavated, its story pieced together from the tangible remains of daily life. Archaeologists have mapped the stone foundations of simple homes, analyzed the fragments of pottery used for storage and cooking, and studied the animal bones and stone tools that speak of a balanced existence. This was a peaceful society of farmers who tilled the land and fishermen who harvested the sea, their lives intimately tied to a coastline that was slowly, inexorably retreating. The value of Agios Petros lies precisely in its clarity and its methodical study. It provides a textbook contrast to more sensational claims, showing how underwater archaeology works at its best. Researchers here can distinguish between a collapsed wall and a natural rock fall, between a discarded tool and a stone shaped by currents. Each artifact is plotted, each layer of sediment read like a page in a history book, building a coherent narrative of a specific community living at a specific time. What that narrative reveals is a gentle tragedy of adaptation. The people of Agios Petros were not the citizens of a mythical empire. They were families building a life on fertile ground. As the post-Ice Age waters continued their rise, this ground became precarious. The sea that provided their food also began to claim their homes, well by well, field by field, until the village was finally abandoned to the waves. This site grounds our entire exploration in a proven, documented reality. It demonstrates without speculation that the rising seas of the ancient world did not just erase hypothetical cities, they inundated real, thriving human habitats. The loss of Agios Petros was a local event, but it represents a global pattern, a single note in a chorus of displacement that echoed across the Aegean and beyond. It reminds us that the great geological forces of the past played out in countless small, personal stories of resilience and, ultimately, retreat. Our story now crosses the Atlantic to the warm, shallow waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Here, where the mighty Mississippi River empties its silt into the sea, sonar technology has painted a surprising picture of the submerged delta. Scattered across the seafloor, far from today's shoreline, are clusters of strange, symmetrical mounds. These are not random piles of sediment. Their distinct shapes and organized patterns stand out starkly against the smooth, muddy bottom. To the researchers who study them, these formations bear a striking resemblance to features we know well on dry land, ancient shell middens and ceremonial earthworks built by early indigenous cultures. This discovery opens an entirely new frontier in the search for lost chapters of human history, one that firmly places the Americas into this global narrative. The logic is compelling and rooted in that same inescapable geological truth. During the last ice age, with so much water locked in ice, global sea levels were dramatically lower. The coastline of North America was not where it is today. The continental shelf was exposed, creating a vast, dry plain where the Gulf of Mexico now rolls. The Mississippi River would have carved its way across this expansive landscape, creating a fertile delta region rich in resources, a perfect environment for early human societies. The Paleo-Indian peoples, the first inhabitants of the continent, were not just nomadic hunters of the inland plains. They were sophisticated communities who lived in harmony with their environment, and the coast would have been a lifeline, offering abundant shellfish, fish, and migratory birds. The mounds mapped on the seafloor could be the remnants of their coastal settlements, piles of discarded shells marking generations of harvests, or perhaps even early burial or ceremonial sites, deliberate constructions that anchored their spiritual world to a specific place in the landscape. What makes these underwater cairns so significant is the paradigm shift they represent. For decades, the search for evidence of Ice Age civilizations has often focused on the Old World, on the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, and the seas around Asia. The discovery in the Gulf of Mexico powerfully argues that this was a planetary phenomenon. If rising seas swallowed the homelands of cultures in Europe and Asia, then the same process must have occurred in the Americas. The rich, complex tapestry of indigenous cultures that developed over millennia did not appear in a vacuum. Their deepest roots may be found not in the forests or great river valleys we know today, but on ancient shorelines that are now dozens of miles out to sea, under 100 feet of water. This expands the map of our curiosity exponentially. It suggests that the first great stories of North America, the foundational memories and sacred sites of its earliest peoples, might be resting in the silent, sunken gardens of the continental shelf, waiting to reconnect a fragmented history. Even the greatest empires could not hold back the sea forever. On the coast of Israel, the ancient port of Caesarea Maritima stands as a monumental testament to human ambition and its ultimate fragility. Built by Herod the Great over 2,000 years ago as a showcase of Roman engineering, it was once a bustling metropolis and one of the largest artificial harbors of the ancient world. Its design was a masterpiece of maritime technology, featuring immense breakwaters made from hydraulic concrete that hardened underwater, sophisticated sluice gates to manage silt, and towering lighthouses to guide ships safely to dock. This was not a simple port, it was a declaration of power, a hub of commerce and culture carved from the very edge of the Mediterranean. Yet today, much of this engineering marvel lies in ruins beneath the waves, not from a single cataclysm, but from a slower, relentless assault. A series of powerful earthquakes weakened its mighty structures, and the relentless Mediterranean currents piled silt into its carefully designed basins. Over centuries, the sea that the port was built to conquer slowly reclaimed it stone by stone. The inclusion of Caesarea, a well-documented historical site, serves a profound purpose in our exploration. It provides a powerful, undeniable metaphor. If the formidable technology of the Roman Empire, with all its resources and engineering genius, could not defend its greatest harbor from the ocean's encroachment, what possible chance did earlier, less fortified settlements have? Consider a simple village built of wood and fieldstone, or a ceremonial site marked by standing stones, established on a coastline 10,000 years ago. When the post-Ice Age floods came, rising not over centuries but potentially over generations, those communities had no breakwaters, no concrete, no vast empire to muster a defense. Their fate was not a slow decay, but a swift and total transformation. Caesarea's submerged ruins are a sobering bridge between the mythic and the historical. They move the conversation from speculative lost continents to a documented case study in coastal vulnerability. It demonstrates that the process we are investigating is not a fringe idea, but a geological and historical reality. The sea's power is impartial, claiming both the works of legendary emperors and the homes of nameless prehistoric families. This site acts as a solemn warning from the past, written in drowned stone, reminding us that our own coastal cities, for all their modern technology, are engaged in the same ancient, ongoing struggle against a rising frontier. The lesson of Caesarea is not one of hopelessness but of perspective. It asks us to look at the faint, older shapes in deeper waters with a new sense of understanding. If this is what happened to the mighty, what profound stories are waiting in the silent places where the water is even deeper and the past is even older? The map of Southeast Asia is a lie. What we see today, a scattering of lush islands separated by deep blue channels, is a recent geographical arrangement. For tens of thousands of years during the long winter of the last ice age, this entire region was united. A colossal continental shelf, a verdant expanse geologists call Sunderland, stretched from present-day Thailand and Vietnam all the way to the islands of Java, Sumatra, and Borneo. This was not a narrow land bridge, but a vast, fertile subcontinent, nearly the size of modern Europe, offering a mosaic of rainforests, savannas, and immense river systems. It was a paradise for life and, crucially, a superhighway for early human migration. This land, now vanished beneath the South China and Java seas, represents perhaps the single greatest lost landscape in the human story, a sunken cradle of civilization whose secrets are only beginning to whisper to us. Unlike other sites on our list, we are not searching here for a single pyramid or a defined city wall. The evidence from Sunderland is of a different, more foundational kind. Sophisticated sonar mapping has revealed the ghostly topography of this drowned world in stunning detail. We can now trace the ancient, winding courses of mighty rivers like the Molingraf and the North Sunder, rivers that once carved valleys through dense forests and emptied into a coastline hundreds of miles further out than today's shore. We can see the outlines of vast, now submerged lakes and the rolling contours of hills that have not felt sunlight for over 10,000 years. This detailed mapping transforms a theoretical landmass into a tangible, habitable geography. It shows us the very pathways our ancestors would have walked, the riverbanks where they might have camped, the coastal plains where they could have established more permanent settlements. The statistical probability is overwhelming. Given its immense size, rich resources, and perfect position along migration routes, Sunderland must have been home to significant populations of early modern humans for millennia. These were not primitive wanderers. By the time the seas began their final rise, the peoples of this region were sophisticated coastal foragers, masters of maritime resources, likely with complex social structures, art, and oral traditions. They possessed the knowledge to build boats and navigate coastal waters, a skill that would have become their salvation as their world flooded. The great tragedy and the great mystery of Sunderland is that its most populated areas, its richest river deltas and most sheltered bays, are precisely the zones that were drowned first and most completely by the rising post-ice age seas. Any evidence of their presence, from shell middens to wooden structures to stone tools, now lies buried under hundreds of feet of water and millennia of accumulated sediment. This makes direct archaeological investigation immensely challenging but not hopeless. The discovery of even a single, well-preserved site on this drowned shelf would be a revolution. It could reveal a chapter of human prehistory where coastal societies developed in relative isolation, potentially experimenting with early forms of plant management and social organization long before the traditional dawn of agriculture in the Fertile Crescent. Sunderland forces us to confront a humbling scale of loss. We are not looking for a lost city, but for a lost continent of human experience. Its silent, submerged river valleys are the empty pages of a book we have only just learned existed. They remind us that some of the most important stages of the human journey may have been walked on ground that is now forever under the waves, waiting for the slow, patient work of science to read their story in the silt. The Atlantic coast of North America is dotted with a landscape of quiet, geometric mysteries. From the air across the Carolinas and into Georgia, you can see them by the thousands, shallow elliptical depressions etched into the earth, all uniformly aligned in a northwest to southeast direction. These are the Carolina Bays, and their origin has puzzled geologists for over a century. Mainstream science offers a compelling, natural explanation, attributing these unique formations to a combination of wind and water processes during the volatile climate shifts at the end of the last ice age. The prevailing theory suggests that as the permafrost thawed, groundwater erupted to the surface, creating shallow pools. Prevailing winds then sculpted these pools into their distinctive oval shapes, aligning them like countless eyes staring up from the ancient coastal plain. This explanation fits the geological evidence neatly, painting a picture of a dynamic, changing landscape shaped by elemental forces. Yet the mystery deepens when we look offshore. Some sonar surveys conducted in the shallow Atlantic waters have revealed hints of what appear to be linear, wall-like features lying within the submerged extensions of these bays. To those searching for lost chapters of history, these faint echoes on a sonar screen spark a profound question. Could these enigmatic landforms, which were at their most prominent and water-filled during the Ice Age, have held a deeper significance for the people who lived among them? Imagine the Carolina Bays not as random geological scars, but as a ready-made network of sheltered lagoons and ponds dotting a vast, exposed continental shelf. For Paleo-Indian communities following the retreating ice, this would have been an incredibly rich environment. The bays would have attracted wildlife, provided fresh water, and offered protected spaces. In such a setting, it is not difficult to envision these natural basins becoming focal points for seasonal camps, sacred sites, or places of gathering. The suggestion of submerged walls, however faint, invites us to wonder if early inhabitants might have enhanced these natural features. Could they have built simple stone alignments to channel water, create fishing weirs, or mark celestial events? If so, the rising Atlantic Ocean did not just flood a flat plain, it drowned an entire, organized cultural landscape tailored to a unique geological phenomenon. The true importance of the Carolina Bays hypothesis lies not in proving a lost city lies beneath them, but in expanding our perception of how early Americans interacted with their world. It challenges us to see the ancient landscape not as a blank wilderness, but as a canvas already imprinted with strange, compelling shapes that may have drawn human curiosity and activity like a magnet. Whether the sonar images reveal natural ridges or the ghost of human modification, the bays stand as a powerful symbol. They represent the possibility that the first stories of this continent are not just written in stone tools found inland, but in the subtle, now drowned relationships between a people and the very shape of their land, a relationship swallowed by the sea but still whispering from the sandy bottom. Our final destination is not a pyramid or a wall, but a gallery waiting in the dark. The 20th submerged ruin is perhaps the most intimate of all, the lost caves and rock shelters that once served as homes, sanctuaries, and canvases for Ice Age artists. These were not grand monuments to power, but personal spaces where the human spirit first made its mark in ochre and charcoal. As the great melt unfolded, the rising ocean did more than drown coastlines. It crept into these sacred hollows, filling them with silent, salty water and sealing away some of our species' earliest stories. This concept transforms our search from one for architecture to one for art, from the shape of societies to the shape of human thought itself. Imagine a coastal cave 10,000 years ago, its mouth opening onto a vista of a vast, grassy plain that stretched to a distant shoreline. Inside, a community finds shelter. They build fires against the back wall, their smoke staining the ceiling. And on the smooth stone surfaces, by flickering firelight, someone's hand traces the outline of a mammoth, a geometric pattern, or perhaps a human form. This artwork is not mere decoration. It is a profound act of symbolism, a communication across time, a way to make meaning of the world. For generations, this cave is a living space, a spiritual center, a library of images. Then the waters rise. Slowly, inevitably, the sea claims the plain, approaches the cave mouth, and finally pours in. The hearths are extinguished, the entrance is blocked, and the gallery is plunged into a permanent, aquatic twilight. Today, marine archaeologists are actively searching for these drowned galleries. The logic is compelling. We know from sites like Lascaux in France or the caves of Sulawesi that our ancestors frequently used caves as artistic spaces. During the Ice Age, with sea levels hundreds of feet lower, the usable coastline was far further out. The most desirable real estate for a human group would have been along that ancient shore, where caves and overhangs offered protection from the elements and predators. Therefore, the greatest concentration of coastal cave art from that era is not in the hills we see today, but in the thousands of caves that now lie beneath the waves, lining the drowned continental shelves of every continent. Finding even a single panel of submerged art would be a discovery of staggering importance. It would do more than push back the timeline of human creativity. It would geographically anchor that creativity to a landscape we have only theorized. It would tell us not just that people were there, but what they saw, what they feared, what they revered. A painting of a now extinct animal found in a sunken cave would be a direct snapshot of life in that lost world. The search, however, is a monumental technical challenge. These caves are often buried under sediment, their entrances collapsed. The murky water and fragile nature of pigment on rock require tools of exquisite sensitivity. Yet the potential reward makes the effort essential. This ultimate submerged record is not one of engineering, but of imagination. It is the search for the drowned mind of the Ice Age, a quest to recover not just where our ancestors lived but how they dreamed. In these silent, water-filled chambers may lie the first chapters of the human story, painted in the dark, waiting for our light to find them again. 20 scattered points on a map begin to form a constellation. When we step back from the individual mysteries of Yonaguni, Doggerland, or the Gulf of Khambhat, a larger, more profound picture emerges. The first and most striking pattern is geographic. These submerged ruins and anomalies are not clustered in one legendary sea, but are found across every major ocean, from the sunlit shallows of the Caribbean to the dark plains of the Baltic, from the ancient coastlines of India to the drowned river valleys of Southeast Asia. This global distribution is a powerful clue. It suggests that if complex societies did flourish during the Ice Age, they were not centralized in a single lost continent, but were likely a widespread phenomenon of coastal and maritime peoples. Their worlds were the fertile continental shelves, the rich estuaries, and the archipelagos that are now underwater. Their fate was inextricably tied to the shoreline, making them the first and most vulnerable witnesses to the Great Melt. The nature of the evidence itself forms a revealing spectrum. On one end, we have the clear, excavated reality of places like Atlit Yam and Pavlopetri, where stone foundations and pottery shards leave no doubt about human habitation. On the other end lie the deep-water sonar ghosts, like the formations off Cuba or the Baltic Sea Anomaly, where interpretation walks a fine line between geology and archaeology. This entire range is deeply instructive. It teaches us that underwater exploration is a discipline of patience and precision, where a single verified artifact holds more weight than a dozen intriguing shapes. The most compelling cases often lie in the middle, where cultural memory, like the flood legends of Dwarka or Mahabalipuram, aligns with physical structures found in the sea, creating a bridge between story and stone. From this global mosaic, three powerful themes recur with haunting consistency. The first is the undeniable, monumental force of sea level change. This is not a theory, but a geological fact written in the depth of every site. The second is the persistent cultural memory of a great flood, a story so universal it must be rooted in a shared human experience of catastrophic loss. The third is a repeated demonstration of technological capability, from the massive stonework of Madol to the ceremonial circles of Lannic, showing that ancient peoples possessed the skill and organization to alter their landscape on a grand scale. When these three threads intertwine, they challenge a deeply held assumption, the linear model of human history that sees a steady, upward march from simple hunter-gatherers to complex urban societies. What if progress was not a straight line, but a series of cycles? What if civilizations rose, achieved sophistication, and were then reset, not by war or invasion, but by the planet itself changing its face? The silent ruins beneath the waves ask us to consider that the story of humanity may be less about a single, unbroken ascent, and more about resilience in the face of forgotten cataclysms, about knowledge lost and slowly rediscovered across the millennia. The silent testimony of the deep is a story told in fragments, a mosaic pieced together from sunken stones and whispered legends. From the debated terraces of Yonaguni to the confirmed streets of Pavlopetri, we have navigated a spectrum of evidence where geology and history blur at the water's edge. While not every site conclusively proves the existence of an Ice Age metropolis, together they form a powerful, unified argument. Their collective voice suggests that our traditional maps of the human past are profoundly incomplete, missing the vast, fertile territories that once connected continents and cradled early societies. The Great Thaw at the end of the last glacial period was more than a shift in climate. It was a global rearrangement of the stage upon which humanity walked. The rising seas did not merely redraw coastlines, they may have erased entire volumes from the library of our shared story, sinking the homelands, monuments, and memories of peoples whose names we will never know. These submerged ruins, whether proven or potential, stand as solemn witnesses to that loss. They challenge our assumptions not with a shout, but with a persistent, watery silence. This evidence calls for a balanced approach, a marriage of open-minded curiosity and unyielding scientific rigor. We must be brave enough to ask the big questions, yet disciplined enough to demand clear proof, understanding that the ocean floor is a master of both revelation and illusion. The enduring mystery, then, may not lie solely in the ruins we have begun to catalogue. Perhaps the greatest enigma is the sheer scale of what remains unseen. The abyss is vast, and our explorations have only skimmed its sunlit surface. What other chapters of the human journey lie buried in the sediment, hidden in caves we have not yet found, or resting on plains shrouded in perpetual darkness? Each unmapped canyon and uncharted seamount holds the potential to rewrite a line in our history books. The silent testimony of the deep is an invitation, a call to keep looking, to keep listening to the echoes of a world that was lost to the waves.